Good morning, James.
What? Is it time to get up already?
You don't have to get up. You can stay in your bed.
Oh, good.
And still
Good.
talk. That's the cool thing about Zoom, right?
This background, these are really my sheets. So I'm laying down. I have the camera on the ceiling.
Mine is my pillow. I put in the kitchen on my pillow. That's pretty cool.
So speaking of getting up in the morning, we're going to talk about breakfast today.
So
a lot
you
of
mean
people
getting
say
up?
that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. What do you think of that?
Well, I know it's not the first one. It all depends when you wake up and when you go to bed, right?
It's like the joke about the guy that says, I had a dream last night that I was eating a giant marshmallow and I woke up and half my pillow was gone. Yeah. I typically don't eat at night when I'm sleeping.
That's good.
Mark, somebody said something to Mark Twain once about his smoking because he was always smoking a cigar, and he said, "Well, you know what? I almost never smoke when I'm sleeping." So
right, that's good.
And same with me. But I do like breakfast. I don't know if it's the most important meal of the day, but
it depends for who.
I think it's most definitely one of the meals of the day.
Well, it's one of the meals of the day for sure. But it depends for who. Some people, they eat heavier in the morning and during the day, and some people eat heavier at night. It all depends what type of job you have also, because if you work at night like we do, you need to eat, right?
Right. You know, sometimes it's a matter of when I travel to do trade shows, we stay in hotels that usually have really nice buffet breakfasts in the downstairs, and I go down there, and you know, it's tempting to just eat all this stuff because they just have all kinds of wonderful, especially in Europe. I mean, the buffets are fantastic, lots of really great cheeses, and but I find that if I'm going to be on my feet all day long, walking a trade show, and probably not eating much for lunch, I tend to eat a hearty breakfast because I know that I'll be starving by the middle of the day. At home, not so much because, you know, but somebody wants to know, what's your favorite breakfast? What do you eat for breakfast?
You know, it all depends of the day. I don't have a routine, but my routine would be croissant and coffee. That's kind of my thing. I like eggs later, a little bit later. I do like say in the morning. If I do like if I go somewhere where I have to stand up and work, I'll get some eggs going. Eggs and bacon, but mostly eggs, little cheese, maybe some mushrooms. And what you want to avoid is sugar. Obviously, the sugar is the worst thing you can do. So anything sweet, and that's the problem with cereals. The cereals most of the time is just a bunch of sugar, and there's no way a kid can focus. No way, it's impossible. So the whole morning is gone for them, right?
Yeah.
When they go to school with this big thing of cereals, of Cheerios, and all this stuff, you're missing the point here. So
it's extraordinary how much sugar is in a lot of cereals, especially the big national brands. I mean, even when it's not a sugared cereal, like even cornflakes have just a ton of sugar in them.
Yeah. And the frosted one.
Yeah, well, then you get the frosted ones, and it's even more.
That is insane. It's just a bunch of sugar. It's really terrible, especially for the morning, because you get a boost of, it's not even energy, it's that glucose that comes and like,
you go like this, and then halfway through the morning, you're just going like this.
Man, you crash, but you crash poorly.
Yeah.
It's really like you're tired. No, it's not good. So a good breakfast in the morning is either protein or fat. Or both.
Preferably both.
Also, you know, fruits are not bad also. Sometimes I don't have time to eat. I'm just going to do a bunch of fruits. Whatever. It's morning. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
I tend to eat most of my bread in the morning. I really like bread in the morning.
Yeah, it's funny,
Croissant is great.
So I like my croissant in the morning. Croissant and coffee, man. But you can see that it all depends also what you're used to eat, huh? Because we talked about that. But in Japan, the kids they eat a lot of time they eat fish, which is
or
great,
miso. Sometimes they'll have miso soup in the morning,
which is fantastic. But go and try to have raw fish in the morning for some kids here.
Yeah,
that's not going to go well.
but it's extraordinary how many people start their day with Danish and sweet cinnamon rolls and all that kind of stuff. If you go to breakfast places like the cafes and stuff, they've got these cases just filled with sweet pastry.
That's crazy. And the donut is, in my opinion, the donut is the worst thing you can eat. The way it's cooked is super dense. Really, really hard to get rid of. So basically the donut, and I know, no, not the donut, the bagel. Bagel is hard, man. It's super dense. Do you see how dense that is?
Yeah.
Do you know when you chew on that? This is like impossible to get rid of. It's crazy stuff. So basically, yeah, I like my croissant. I like one croissant, maybe two exceptionally when I'm in Paris. But here it's just one coffee. But you need pretty soon protein. You need protein pretty soon, okay? And your protein and the fat, and this is only my own, what I would prefer is not to eat too much fat and protein late. So like you said, you can't eat too late. But when we are in the restaurant business, we eat late, and that's the way it is. You just don't eat too much sugar at night.
Yeah, sugar at night is really bad.
Zero sugar at night.
But it's a real American thing. I noticed that, office workers, I used to work with people and they would always come into work and they'd have this big sweet thing. Or I'd go to breakfast meetings.
The donut box.
Yeah, I'd go to breakfast meetings and they'd say, "Oh, well, we'll have breakfast at the meeting." So I'd show up and they'd have a thing of coffee and then they'd have a big box of donuts in the middle of the table, and I'm like, "Really? This is breakfast?"
Yeah. And they put sugar. So without the sugar, it's already bad because it's fried, but it's not great, right? Exceptionally, it's okay. Do you understand that, huh?
Yeah.
It's about the repetition. So you understand sometimes the breakfasts are okay. When in the old days, breakfast, just like any meal, was whatever you could find. You have to remember that. Today we have those menus and those fancy stuff, and we can, say, well, I'm going to have for lunch this, and the dinner I'm going to have this. In the old days, it was whatever was available, that's what you eat. So it was soup in the morning, soup in the day, and soup at night.
Right.
With beer or med. That's it. There's no, and whatever you could find and munch on. Almonds, piece of cheese, and that's it. That's pretty much it.
And sometimes it was just bread. Sometimes it was just a piece of bread. And you would make a soup out of the bread. You'd pour hot water onto your bread and mix it up and make like a soup out of it.
Add a couple of vegetables to get the flavor. And if they have one piece of meat, they'll put that in there for everyone. But meat was very scarce.
Yeah.
It was expensive. Yeah. So.
Do you think bacon and eggs is a particularly American thing? I mean, in France, I think eggs are more of like something you'd have for lunch or for dinner, like an omelet.
You have eggs a lot in France, whenever. So sometime at dinner you make an omelette because you don't know what to cook. Because we cook a lot, right? And sometimes my mom didn't want to cook, and she makes a big mushroom omelette for dinner with some potatoes. It was fine.
Yeah.
But also you have to remember that in the old days we could eat whatever we wanted because also we were running all day long. So when we come home, we could eat like anything we wanted because we just ran for 2 or 3 hours. We just like nonstop go to the forest, go up the tree, down, push our bicycles. So we were like this big.
Yeah.
So he was trying to get us to eat fat and whatever she could to make us, but that was the goal in the old days. The kids are too small. In France, we were always too small. Eat, my son, you look like nothing. Right?
Yeah.
But we'd spend our energy so much that we could eat whatever we wanted. Now they have to specify and be careful, which sucks because, well, then, It's more complicated for the parents.
It's interesting to me when I travel, because I go to a lot of different European cities, and how different breakfast is in each place. Like in England, there's an
Oh
old
yeah.
there's an old funny saying. I think Somerset Maugham, I think, said that if you want to eat well in Britain, have lunch 3 times. I mean, have breakfast 3 times a day, because
Oh
an
yeah.
English breakfast is a
Yeah.
very hearty meal. It's really incredible. It's always a couple of eggs.
But it's
It's
like
sausage or bacon, toast,
so.
a baked tomato, and baked beans.
So eggs is international. We can see that, right?
Yeah,
Because you can see that in Japan they make those omelette, those square omelette that are really cool.
right.
In so everyone eats eggs in the world, right? Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Only not the Indian people too much.
Oh, really? In India, they don't eat a lot of eggs?
I don't see a lot of egg recipe. I mean, they eat the cheese though, and the
Uh-huh.
lentils and the ghee. So they do have, but I don't see much egg in India. I don't
Well,
know a lot.
didn't chickens originate somewhere in China? I think I
Yeah,
read that
Asia and
that's where.
China. Yep.
Yeah, so then they moved east from there around the world, and
Yeah.
now, of course, chickens are everywhere. But
But it was eggs from other things. It was they could find eggs. People would find eggs from whatever
uh,
ostrich, whatever eggs, and they will always collect because everybody eat eggs, even animals.
hmm
Right? It's full of everything. So the egg in the nutrition world is called the 100% benchmark because it has everything in there. So that's why egg is easy for parents. You just make a little quick 2, 3 eggs, omelette, whatever. It's super easy. It's gone, done.
yeah, I like
But
to cook eggs in the morning, or I like to buy a bunch of eggs and then I hard boil them,
yeah,
and then I
right,
just have them. And then in the morning, I can just cut one open, put a little salt and pepper on it, a cup of coffee, and it's a great thing.
right.
And I like bread and
So
butter in the morning.
yeah, me too.
But I also eat a lot of peanut butter for breakfast. I'll have a piece of toast with peanut butter and jam on it, which is,
Okay. No jam, no jam, no jam. So you wanna be careful with those things. Jam is pure sugar and fructose. It's actually really
yeah, I know.
so it's great, right? We used to do it in the morning in France every morning. I know, but also when we get out of the table, we go run immediately.
Yeah,
So the sugar is not kept at all. So we eat whatever we want. No, the thing is to understand is you can eat whatever you want as long as you run like crazy or you do have such a physical activity that it doesn't matter what you eat. It does in a little way because if you eat sugar all day long, at some point you don't have nutrients. But other than that, the sugar is gone. It's gone immediately. It's gone
yeah.
quick.
It's
You
the
eat
first thing to go. I'll tell
because
you a story.
yeah.
When I grew up eating cereal and toast in the morning, I mean, that was my
Yeah.
typical breakfast for most of my life. And I didn't eat super sugary cereals. I ate, stuff like Cheerios and stuff, which still has sugar in it. But it was funny because one summer I was visiting some cousins in Iowa who lived on a farm, and they asked me if I wanted to. It was the summer I turned 18, and I was just traveling through the Midwest visiting relatives, and they asked me if I wanted to help them walk what they called walk beans, which means you walk up and down the rows of these soybeans and you dig out weeds with a hoe, and it's long, hot, gruesome. Because it was July in Iowa, so it's really, really hot and humid, and it's dirty, and you're walking in these fields, and the sun's beating down on you. Anyway,
Wow.
the first morning, I said, sure, that'd be great. I'd love to help, and there was sort of a family thing, and so the first morning they woke me up. It wasn't even daylight yet, and my cousin's husband came up and woke me up. So I jumped out of bed, got dressed, came downstairs, and they were all having breakfast. And my cousin just had the table heaped. She had made pancakes,
Wow.
bacon. There was a whole platter of fried eggs. There was a big plate of bread, and there was butter, and there's jam, and all this stuff. And I just thought, oh my God, I can't eat all this. I don't eat all this for breakfast. So I ate just, a little bit. Well, then I went out and worked. And we went out and did this all day. And oh my God, by lunchtime, I thought I was going to die. I was so hungry.
Wow.
So I came home and we had this huge lunch. And so the next morning when it was breakfast time, I put everything on my plate. And I just ate this huge breakfast. And I was still hungry at lunch by the
because
time
you used it. You understand that? It's used. That's what it's for. So I was looking at India. They do eat eggs.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
No, I know they do, but it's not in another recipe that I know of. That's all. So you don't see that, like, but they do eat eggs.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, important when you are very active, you can eat. Also, what you can do as well is eat not. So I don't eat in the morning because I never have time. I just drink my coffee, get my croissant, get going for a few hours. So I've done that for many years. And recently, people are talking about intermittent fasting. This is what I do. I don't do it on purpose, but that's what I do. So I don't eat until like 2 p.m. or something. And then I'm gonna have a lunch, nothing crazy. And then, so I don't eat like tons of food. I eat enough. I eat protein, everything. I eat everything. Fat.
Yeah.
Steak, eggs, whatever, cheese.
I love
but
fat.
not too much. Mm-hmm. And lots of veggies and salad. But for the morning, I don't have a routine, unfortunately. And I think routines are good. They're not good for me because of my work. My work is all over the place. I can't really have lunch at noon. I can't do that because most at noon I'm already working somewhere or gathering some stuff for the classes, whatever it is, right? But it looks like some people routine are great and some people it's not, because the way I eat is the way kind of when I'm hungry I eat.
Yeah.
And in the old days it was when you had food you eat.
Right. We don't have any set routine in our house either. We tend to eat sort of when we get around to it and feel like it, and sometimes we'll eat a meal in the middle of the afternoon,
right?
And then I just don't even have dinner. I just maybe have a salad or something later. But which is what I really love to do. I love to eat. I love to eat my big meal in the middle of the day, which is I think a good thing to do.
So people have to realize what works for them, and you can't follow a diet. You have to see what's worked for you. Once it works for you, great. You have to tweak that, and you need to figure out what works to you. It's really important because the person next to you, even if it's your wife or your husband or whatever, it might be different. And I know it sucks for a couple, but that's the truth. The truth is it might be different for both of you. And you need to figure out what works for you. And the kids are different, whether they are active or not.
Right.
You see, there's a lot of factors in order to determine a diet. But you need to eat a little bit of everything. Good food, you'll be fine, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have little kids at home, but but I think when you do have, well, I have stepkids, but they weren't little when I knew them. But I've got grandkids, but we don't, they're not here all the time, and but when you have little kids around, they sort of want to eat all the time. I mean, they're playing and they're constantly want some snacks. Fortunately, our grandkids love stuff like cut up bell peppers. They love peas. They love beets. Sydney will cook beets and just cut them up and they'll eat them like candy. I mean, they kind of are candy.
Because it's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Now the kid can be trained. The kid can be trained, but once they are trained, that's it. So if you train poorly with sugar, this is done. You can't remove that. You have to be very careful with that. So be careful with the breakfast for kids. And I know it's so convenient to have cereals and milk, and you're done. It's so easy.
Yeah, when they stay over, we don't. I mean, we just don't have that kind of stuff in the house. So when they do stay over, which hasn't happened a lot lately. The last year with the pandemic, we haven't really done sleepovers. But when we used to, I would get up and cook for them in the morning. I would make them eggs, or we'd make a big pot of oatmeal, or we'd, whatever. So we don't tend to give them a lot of sweet stuff, but we do as a treat. We'll make something, or they'll help Sydney bake, and they'll bake a cake or something, and then they get to have some. And I think when you have to work for it a little bit, it's a little better for you too. I think Michael Pollan once said, he said, French fries aren't so bad. He said, just make them yourself, because then you're not going to eat them every day. If you can only eat the French fries you make, you're just not going to eat them every day. It's just not going to happen. But it's too easy for us to get that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So for breakfast, countries are all over the place, but it's like, it's really whatever you have on hand and what they're used to it.
Right.
So it could be anything and everything. Some people don't eat in the morning; they don't have any food.
Right.
So a lot of people can't eat anyways, and whatever they eat is, a lot of time it's either the mom is home and she has time to make something cool, or someone is home. If nobody's home, then, or if the kids are all on their own, they eat whatever they find, right?
Right.
So breakfast it is very important if you're very active. Yes. For me, it is actually, I don't eat much in the morning. I drink, and I'm very active. So it does two things. I stay slim without, I'm not trying to stay slim. I'm really small. I'm not trying to stay slim. This is the way I eat. I eat whatever, I don't.
Right.
Just the way it is, right? It's like, I don't think about it.
And yeah, I get up, I make myself a mug of coffee, and I usually have some kind of bread. I usually a thick slice of bread that I toast.
But you just said that.
Yeah, but I don't.
You want to make sure that people.
If I eat eggs, I tend to eat them later. I'll wait a while and have like a second breakfast. But when I used to go to my aunt and uncle's farm in Iowa in the summertime, this was a different farm.
Wow, that's cool. Huh?
We would get up in the morning and go out and do chores before breakfast. So by the time you sat down to breakfast, you'd already milked the cow, collected the eggs from the hen house, done some cleanup work, done some organizing. So, it was like an hour and a half of work, and then you'd come in for breakfast. So you were really hungry.
Exactly. So for me, when I used to go in a farm, a friend's farm for the summer, for example, then we get up super early first. We go work. We eat a piece of lard, and they drink some hot wine because it's super cold outside, right?
Right.
A piece of lard and bread and maybe some eggs. And then you come back at 8 or 9 a.m. and then you drink your bread and jam and butter.
Right.
It was reversed. So the cool breakfast was later. But the first one, when it was really cool outside, was a piece of lard, big piece of lard, some eggs, some bread. And they would drink some hot red wine or little Calvados, a very, very small thing of booze, because it was really cold in the morning. It's super cold in the countryside at 5 or 6.
Uh-huh.
And then I was learning that actually alcohol is not good when you're cold. Did you know that? Alcohol is actually terrible.
It actually lowers your temperature.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in Russia, in Siberia, they drink a lot, right?
Yeah.
But they get colder faster.
I don't know. I think it makes you feel better when you're cold.
It numbs you.
Yeah. So
but I
don't know.
It's funny to know that it's actually alcohol does the opposite, because
yeah,
everywhere in the world when it's cold you drink a little schnapps or a little something to huh?
Yeah, right.
So where does it come from? That's so weird.
Well, and it's the same is true. The opposite is true for something like ice cream. People think of ice cream as, on a hot day I'll eat ice cream, it'll be cooling. Well, actually, ice cream is a lot for your body to process. So it actually kind of it creates heat. So it's kind of the opposite.
That's funny.
I don't really eat ice cream anymore, but the only time I really like ice cream, I like it in colder weather. I like it in the wintertime. I like a little ice cream for dessert because it's fat, and it's, like I said, I don't really eat it anymore. But in the summertime, it just doesn't appeal to me that much.
Way too much sugar for me. Personally, that's personal.
Too much sugar and fresh milk. It's not a cultured milk, so it's a bad combination. But
for some people it works, but whatever.
One thing I learned in Germany, they eat, and Switzerland, they eat a lot of granola or muesli.
Yeah,
But
that's
they don't
great.
eat it with, but they never put milk on their cereal.
They
They
put
eat it with
water.
yogurt or water or even
Yeah,
orange
hot water.
juice.
Yeah.
And
So
so I started doing that, and it's much better with yogurt.
yeah, well, it's heavier though, way heavier.
Yeah, it's a heavy breakfast. Again, it's something I rarely do.
I've tried to do yogurt and what is that? Oat yogurt and oh my
Yeah.
god, it's like damn. I mean, I'm sure it's great. I just, whew, it's really hard to move. So the thing with oat, which is really cool, oat is interesting. It's a breakfast cereal most of the time, but it's not something that's going to give you a lot of energy because it's full of tryptophan.
Hmm.
So it's a relaxant. It's
Oh,
interesting. Huh?
interesting.
So it's not like it's going to put you to sleep, but it's full of tryptophan. So it's going to really relax you, but it's not something like coffee or something.
So it's probably not the thing to eat if you've got to go out and do work, because
I don't know, because the thing is this. I am very physical. I work a lot. I don't have choice. I work every day. Like I have to get up and I have to come here, get my food, put my trays. I have a few classes a day. I have to go shop, carry the bags, go up the stairs, put that in the fridge, change my fridge, do the dishes. So it's non-stop. So for me, I can eat whatever I want. I can literally go and get a cake and eat it. I don't like sweet. I hate the smell, the taste. But I can eat a bunch of fruit sometime if I don't have time to cook, and I have some really cool pineapples here. I can eat whatever fruit I want. It's not going to stay. You see?
Uh-huh.
So really, when you look at diet, you have to look at how much physical activity you do first, because that's going to impact a lot of your decision. And basically, if you don't do any physical activity, I'm not going to say don't eat, obviously, because you can't do that. But you're on the wrong path and you're going to get sick. And you need to understand, well, we can talk about that another time, but I want to stick it to breakfast. The breakfast, it's also dependent on what time is the lunch, or do you have lunch?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, and actually that's very good, have 2 meals a day, and that's great. 2 meals is really good. It's a good meal. That's great.
That's pretty much what I do now these days.
And a little snack in the afternoon, perfect. So then in this case, your breakfast will be big, or your lunch will be big, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe dinner is light. So there's no rule, and you need to. So that's why we do. Actually, Lisa Miller, my business partner, that's what she does. She does, menu planning, and we do menu planning, but she does consulting, and we have to go through a whole input of stuff to see what the client is looking for. What's his energy? What's his work? Does he work in an office? I don't, so I can go and eat whenever I want. You see, lots of very different alternatives. So you need a lot of physical activity, and you need sun.
I think people that work in an office, they sit at a desk in a cubicle all day, and they start their day with a giant Cinnabon and then a huge, cinnamon caramel latte or something. And then they wonder why they're just getting heavier and heavier, because they're not doing anything to work that off. It's bad to begin with, and they're not doing any physical activity. So it's a lethal combination.
So in my opinion, once you eat, you need to move. Like as you finish, you need to move immediately. So this is only what I think. This is what I believe from what I understand about biochemistry. You eat, you get a bunch of electrons that are really to be used. You have it's called an electron transport chain that's been filled up with that energy and those are ATP, and they want to and you have to use them.
Yeah.
If not, they get stuck somewhere or they create free radicals. So that's the thing. When you eat, in the old days with my mom and my dad, when we're in vacation, as soon as we eat, we go for a long walk. Could be lunch or dinner, always. Not when you work, right? But you should do that. You should go in a fast walk for 10 minutes. Just go and get that stuff out, because really it's important. It cannot be like all filled up in there. And also by you moving, you're moving your lymphatic system, which kind of makes everything kind of go away and the toxins be liberated. So I think exercise is most important than even diet. Of course, diet is very important, but if you look at physical activity is kind of the crucial part of the whole concept here.
Right. And as we've said many times, exercise does not necessarily mean you have to go to a gym and do a bunch. Exercise, just get up, just move around the house, do housework, go out for a walk, walk the dog. I go out every day and at least twice a day and take walks.
Yep.
Because especially if I'm working in my office and I'm just writing all day, then I make a point of going out and walking. Even if I'm going to the post office, I go out and walk, 2 miles to get to the post office.
Oh, yeah,
I just do a big loop.
Great.
And
that's fantastic.
And I'm right near campus, so I hike up through campus a lot. And
people have been walking much more because of the COVID. I hope they can keep doing that.
Yeah.
I hope people keep doing that thing about moving. We have to go soon, but Chef James, can you tell us quickly what's the breakfast definition? Where did it come from? Breakfast, right?
Well, it's in English. It's literally you're breaking your fast. So you've slept. Presumably, you've been in bed asleep for 8 hours, and you're getting up, and that's a long time to go without food. You think about it. You don't really go that long during the day without food.
That's not
most
true.
People.
No, you can't. You can. So we lost that.
You can, but I'm saying most people don't. I mean, there's usually not 8 hours between meals. So if you've slept for 8 hours, and presumably you probably didn't eat for a couple hours before you went to bed. So it's a long period. So your body's sort of wanting fuel. So you're breaking your fast. And another quick story, a friend of mine went to Hawaii once, and he stayed with this Japanese family who were growers. And the first morning for breakfast, they served him this little grilled fish and some fresh pineapple, or I think it was pineapple that they grew. It was a little baby pineapple.
Nice. Wow.
And he thought it was so strange. He goes, what a bizarre thing to have for breakfast. So he ate it, and he told me, he said, "Oh my God, it was the greatest breakfast in my life."
Wow.
He said, I want that all the time. This little grilled fish and some fresh fruit.
Wow.
So it just,
fun.
We get stuck in a rut sometimes, but there's lots of different ways to eat in the morning.
Yeah.
And as long as you avoid the sugar, and as long as you get exercise,
you need to avoid all sugars. All sugar. The sugars needs to go.
Sugar's not a good thing.
So, Jess, what do you think? We're done.
I think we're done. I think we've covered breakfast.
The breakfast.
Yeah.
So breakfast.
And now I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too. No, I just made a liver soup. I need to boost my immune system a little bit, so I made a big liver soup with a lot of rich chicken stock. So
I bet that's full of iron.
And a bunch of other things. Yes.
All right.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.